Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing to work on our Challenger. So as you saw in the previous episode, we got the car painted, but we did have a pretty big run on there. Our first task is going to be to see if we can get that run taken care of by this new method that I told you in the last video. Take a look. That's the run that I'm talking about there and here. So the trick that I happened to see was actually one of the guys that I watched on YouTube. His screen name, I believe, is The Gunman. He's out of Australia. I watched a lot of his videos when I first started painting because I didn't work in a body shop, and I just learning this on my own and was watching video, doing a lot of research, and a lot of videos that I watched were his. And just so happened that after I got that run, the video popped up for how he took care of a run the way someone showed him a long time ago. So let's get started on that. If we can get that run out, we'll just buff everything out, and then we'll continue reassembling the front end, the cooling, so that way the car can move under its own power. Once we get that all complete, we're going to start getting the rest of the parts painted. Alright guys, so the trick that I saw on a different YouTube video is what the guy did was he used a fine body filler, lightweight, and it may seem crazy that you're going to put filler on a freshly painted car, but it actually makes sense to me because what it's doing is it's filling the voids between the runs. So that way when you're sanding it, like without the filler, when you're trying to sand these runs out, even if you're using a block or something, you're still sanding all this clear around the run. So it's kind of just recreating it, and that's why it's so hard to get rid of them 100%, basically without painting it. And when you put the filler in there, it's filling those voids, so that way you're sanding the tops of the run. And so when you're blocking it out, what you're doing is that you're sanding the actual run, and then the filler, instead of the clear that's a lot lower than the run itself, you're sanding everything equally. So that way, by the time that you get this clear run completely out, you're going to get rid of all the filler, and then you just have the clear coat. And then once we get that sanded down, we'll start working through our grits to get it up to the 1500, where we can 1500 or 2000. Then we can just buff everything out evenly. So there's only one thing left. Let's try and see what happens. Alright, so we got some filler on our fresh paint job. We're going to let that dry up, and then we can give it a try. I guess we got nothing to lose because we're going to have to repaint this anyway. So let's see if it works. Alright guys, moment of truth. So I got our collection of wet sanding paper. We are going to start out with the 400 grit. That's going to help us cut through that run and the filler a lot quicker. Once we start getting down to where there's almost no filler left over and the run is gone, we'll start working our way up on the grits. Because this area is so small, just cut a little piece of a paint stick. Oh, and actually, you can see right here, that's actually some of that run sticking out through, so that's the high points that we need to sand down. Alright, so we can see the run starting to appear. Probably put too much on there, but give it a try. Alright guys, so seems to be working. Our filler spot is shrinking, and you can see the runs right there. You can't feel them along with the filler. So it seems to be working. Alright, let's keep going with the 400 till there's barely any filler left, until that run is gone, and then we'll start going up in the grit. Alright, I think it's working. Here, let's step it up to 600 grit, take a little bit of a bigger area, and then we'll keep feathering it out a little bit with the with the finer papers, and then we'll get the buffer on it. Now let's dry it off. Well, look at that. I think that run is gone. And hardly the most effort was with the 400, getting rid of the actual big run itself and the filler. Just barely went over with the 600, go over all the scratches that the 400 left over. We got the 600 done, so let's step it up to the next grit. Alright, now I got some 1000. Now I got some 1500. Alright, so now we're going to use the foam pad. The first step, 3M step number 1. Alright, so what do you think? We're gonna get in for a closer look. I mean, there's like, if you're in right angle, kind of, barely, but I mean, it is gone. Gunman, if you ever see this video, for some reason you come across it, thank you, man. This just saved us repainting this quarter panel. It's a good trick to know. Learn something new every day. Alright, so guys, you never know. Always worth a try, especially the fact that if this didn't work, or even if we didn't know this trick, we probably would have had to repaint this whole quarter panel. And here the sail panel is huge. I mean, it would have been another job. So, really happy with that. Another trick to add to our books for things to correct mistakes or other things that, like the runs. So we're going to work on getting this out. We're going to buff the rest of the car while it's still taped up, so that way none of the splatter and everything from the compound gets in the car or anywhere else. We're probably not going to tape that just because it's just the same process of what we just showed you, just the whole thing. But we're going to get this all buffed out, and then we'll come back to it.
Wop-a-doodle-doodle-wop. Beep-beep-a-doodle-whoa. Diddle-diddle-wop-a-ba-ba-doo. Crazy talk means I love you. Wop-a-doodle-doodle-wop. Beep-beep-a-doodle-whoa. Diddle-diddle-wop-a-ba-ba-doo. Crazy talk means I love you.
Alright guys, so now we got the whole car buffed out. Let's take a look. Still got a little bit of film left over from the buffing, but everything turned out real good. We got rid of that big run, actually both of them. That method really worked really well by putting the putty in between on the run itself. So that worked really good. It's a really good thing to know. Saved us a lot of work, a lot of time and materials in trying to fix that run, so we didn't have to repaint that. Got it out, looks good. So that way we can keep going with repairing. We got this all painted. We got that touched up. The rails themselves on the inside, so everything's looking real good. Our next thing is we're gonna start getting the cooling together. Bought some new radiators. So we got the main cooling radiator, and then the little box is a condenser. Our support that we were fitting when we were doing the framework, and the lower part for the radiator. So we're gonna start getting this stuff put in there, so that way we run the car and we can move it onto its own power versus having to keep pushing it around. Alright, so we got all the cooling back together, but first we got to throw the center console in there, just somewhat hook it up, because we got the electronic shifter, and it also has the antenna for the smart key, so the key's not going to work without that center console being in there and plugged in. Alright, she started up. She's been sitting for a while, so that's that same ticking noise that we got when we first got the car. But otherwise, running good. We got the air coming out of the system. And on this one, you got to make sure that you get this coolant from the dealer, because it actually has some kind of organic coolant in it, and if you put anything else in there, it will turn into gel and clog up your radiator, the inside of the engine. It will just completely mess up everything. So on these new Dodges and Chryslers, you got to make sure that you put the right coolant in there, otherwise it turns into gel. Alright guys, so now that we got the cooling all back into the car, it starts up, it drives, so we got it out of here, and now we're getting ready to paint the rest of the parts to get this Challenger complete. We have the front and rear bumpers, we have the hood, 2 fenders, and a couple other small miscellaneous pieces. We got everything sanded down with 600 grit, everything's good to go for paint. So we're going to continue prepping these. Once these dry off, we're going to make sure there's no shiny spots left over. Once that's all done, we'll give them a final wipe down and start painting them. Alright guys, so we got everything dried up, we got everything set up. So that's what we got to paint today. Didn't do it on purpose, but it turned out like a circle for some reason. But I think it'll work. I just tried setting everything up so that way with the fan sucking everything, the way the air is going to be moving, hopefully the way I have it set up, it'll minimize the dirt. Alright, so I'm going to wipe the metal parts down with the regular wax and grease remover. And then the plastic bumpers, we will use a different wax and grease remover, because this one tends to create static for some reason. So we're going to use a different cleaner on the bumpers so they don't get any static and so they don't attract anything to themselves. And we're just repeating our process just in case some of you just joined our channel, haven't seen our previous paint jobs. But this is the first step to getting paint on there. Okay, and this is the wax and grease remover surface cleaner that we will be using on the plastic parts so they don't attract any static on them. Alright, so we're going to mix up some paint. We are using PX8, which is just a regular Chrysler black. This paint mixes 2 to 1. Next day, all of our parts are painted. Let's check them out. Man, the clear really laid out. I mean, if it wasn't for the trash, got to really figure something out to minimize the amount of dirt, because if it wasn't for the dirt, this bumper is just perfect. Even all these areas here that are really hard to get into, everything turned out real good. The back bumper, this one actually doesn't have as much, barely any dirt like the front one, but that all turned out real good. I mean, there's almost no texture on it. Same thing with the fenders, pretty much factory orange peel. Got some dirt on it, but that's okay. The hood turned out real good too. I mean, it's not a small hood, it's pretty good size, and this still turned out real good. Yeah, we're probably, when we have time, we're going to close that vent that we have up there and get the forklift and probably vacuum the rafters. I'm sure that will help the dirt situation, because I think that's where it's falling from, especially like this bumper here. This spot right here, when I put the second and final coat of clear on here, there wasn't anything here, and then after I cleaned my gun, that was there, so I'm guessing that just fell from the roof. There's no way that it could have blown over like that. But overall, really happy. We're just going to clean up the shop even more so future paint jobs come out cleaner. And we're going to start putting these parts back on the car. Alright guys, so we just got the alignment done on the Ram, and the upholstery guy just gave us a call and told us that the seats for the Challenger are done. So we are gonna go and pick those up. Still haven't had a chance to clean the Ram, but it drives really good. We got a nice big bed back there. Get all the seats in there, and we'll bring them back to the shop and we'll have a look at what they look like. Alright guys, so we're back at the shop. There are the seats. Let's open this bed and see what they look like. Oh man, I think that is going to look real good with the theme and everything that we got going on for the Challenger. These white, that's just chalk that he was using to mark the diamonds. That I'll clean off. So you got the black with the red stitching. We wanted black stitching on the red. I guess he forgot about it, but I still think it looks real good. got that shaker embroidered. Some of this stuff looks like it might be a little bit loose or wrinkly and stuff. When we've gotten it from him before, it's almost the same. It just has to sit out in the sun. It'll stretch, and then everything will look real nice on there. It's gonna look better than OEM. Alright guys, I can already imagine what these seats are gonna look like inside the Challenger. I think it's gonna really look nice. Really gonna fit the theme. And you can see, like I was saying, it's just been in the sun just a little bit, and everything's already starting to stretch out and seat itself on there. So those will look, I think they're gonna look amazing in there. We got the Challenger baking in the sun right now, all the parts that we just painted. Got the factory Mopar intake installed there with that nice filter. Let's take a look. Let's walk around and see what this looks like in the sun, out in the open, not in the shop. I mean, the texture and everything, the shine, the color, you can't even tell that we didn't even touch this door. I mean, texture, everything's exactly the same, like OEM. And even the whole side. I mean, the run that we had, everything. I mean, everything's coming together. Alright guys, so that's it for this episode. Make sure you guys subscribe, turn on those post notifications, because in the next episode, we're going to start going full blown on it, starting to assemble it, get the interior in there, get these awesome seats in there. So make sure you don't miss that next episode. We're going to start putting the Challenger together, and that final picture is going to start coming together. We also got pretty much all the parts. We're waiting for a few little miscellaneous pieces still, but those should be coming in any day. So we'll see you in the next episode.